Hi, folks. Welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Today is a very exciting day. We have a very honored guest that I really needs no introduction. I think probably every one of my listeners knows who this gentleman is and has probably followed him for a very long time. Many consider him kind of the godfather of the constitutional and liberty freedom movement in America, especially over the last few decades. We are, of course, speaking of the Honorable Dr. Ron Paul. Thank you, Dr. Paul, for coming on today. You have quite a legacy in this country for not just being a former congressman and a former candidate for president, but really being a true statesman and a patriot, and I think kind of most of all of being an example of leadership in this country. So I just want to thank you very much for coming on the show today.
Travis, it's great to be with you, and it's great to hear that there's a group of people any place, everywhere building, and I believe these movements are growing. That's why I come down on optimism in spite of all the terrible news that we have to listen to.
And there's a lot of that. It seems
Yeah.
like every day. Do you, and you've done this for a long time, of kind of staying on top of things and trying to spread a different message than what would be considered the mainstream, but are you feeling at some point maybe overwhelmed at the amount of change that's happening at the pace that it's happening, or is it just a perception?
And are you talking about the bad side of things
Yes,
and what's
yes,
happening there?
the
Yeah, well, I look
money
at both sides because I'm excited about what's happening on our side, even though we're
right.
number-wise we're short. But no, I think it's horrendous. And I just wrote a recent article. I said, I think conditions are much worse than anything that I recall about the end of the Depression and World War II and Korean War and Vietnam. I said, I think the conditions, although they're different, I think they're much more dangerous because it's more structural, it's social, it's moral, it's economics, it's monetary, it's our foreign policy of intervention, it's it's the whole empire that we're trying to maintain. So I see that as not just like a financial bubble, but a financial social bubble of all these malinvestments going in the wrong place and getting and the enemies to liberty are in control of so much, whether it's the government, our Justice Department, or whether it's our school system, even medicine. Now they're in charge, and yet so I have to work real hard to look for optimism. That's why I'm on your program, to make sure there's a few people out there thinking about it, and you're like in the center of the country to spread your message.
Yes, well, and it is it's re-energizing. I spoke to you before we started about our local meetings, and we just had one this past Sunday, and it's a lot of work. My wife and I and a few others put a lot of work into it, and it's really an all-day thing between the planning, and I'm sure you're familiar with doing events, that it's physically draining, but it's also it's very uplifting. It's like getting our batteries recharged because we're around others and realize that we're not alone out there when it comes to all the bad that's happening, and all it just seems like it's more overt, the purposeful destruction of what's going on. And
I
so
can, excuse me, I
no,
can
it's okay.
remember when I first discovered Austrian economics, I said, somebody else thinks along what I think about.
Yes,
So that's great. And I think that's what you're experiencing. You go,
yes,
well, there are some people out there that still care.
yes. In 2012, when you gave your final address to Congress, you said that that one of the problems with what's going on is that government has entered a stage of kind of exponential growth. And here we are a little over 10 years later, and it's like it's on some kind of drugs, making it even worse than before. And we're hearing things about from a financial perspective, recession or depression or collapse, and we're hearing the Treasury and the Fed and places like that trying to downplay everything. Do you see this much bigger? I would assume you do, but how much bigger do you think this is than what we're being told, just
Well,
from an economic standpoint?
I think it's pretty evident, and people are waking up. What excites me is when the people wake up and go to action. I
Hmm.
mean, you have a group,
Right.
and your people are awake and looking and trying to change things. And I think of the horror of the lockdown and the takeover of medicine by the Soros type people, and the lack of ability to have a doctor patient relationship. I think this is just terrible. But it was very exciting when people put their foot down and started rebelling. And I think the one thing that's coming out of it, that and the educational system and the evil going on in our government schools, is that you hear it more frequently. And thank goodness the Republicans are at least talking about it. Parents should care. Parents should be involved. And there's a lot of parents who do. And I think that has nothing to do with Republicanism, because we should never look away from the fact that people have a natural tendency, regardless of where you come socially, to take care of your kids. It's hard
Hmm.
to eliminate that. A lot of people do, and it's far from perfect, but it's an issue that should bring us together. And I think in many ways it does. So I think this is good, but it's also, when you're being very honest and realistic, you have to realize this is a big deal, and it's mostly negative. And we have to, I think people have to understand what the Soros movement has been all about. I think
Hmm.
he alone didn't do it, but he represented it. He has had the money and planning and smart. And I think he infiltrated the university system, the government schools. He got involved in medical care and the judicial system. Think of many people he's helped get elected in some of these positions that they're the worst type of authoritarian.
Right. You're exactly right. And this has been happening for decades. And I tell that to people all the time on my channel that, don't think that this is anything new. Like, they may be doing it more out in the open now. I think they feel the freedom to do things out in the open. But as you know, I mean, this kind of stuff has been going on for a long time. One of the things that I say often, actually, I say almost every video that I make, is hearkening back to a biblical verse of getting your houses in order. And I'm not just speaking in a spiritual sense, but also a physical sense. And you've talked about that of what they're doing with the school systems, and not just school systems, but some of these narratives that they're trying to push that are very destructive to traditional and family values. And I do believe that while and you can correct me if I'm wrong, or have, say what you want after this, but I I don't know that we can necessarily fix the system as a government. I mean, we may still be able to, there may still be time, but we certainly, as individuals that support freedom and traditional values, certainly need to be working on our families and our communities of getting them as strong as we can to kind of, I don't know, maybe build a wall against all of this stuff that's going on.
No, you have to be realistic. I was in Congress longer than I ever dreamed. I was there 6 years and said, I've had enough of this, and went back home and practiced medicine, then went back again. But I never had the goal of becoming the chairman of the banking committee and getting rid of the Fed. My goal was much different than that, and that was to spread information. And this is a big difference on because if you think you're going to change the world, you're going to be very frustrated with that. And
Mhm.
I didn't get frustrated because I think I was realistic about it all. But the people, I believe, really are waking up, and they're capable of it. But just think of the advice we got from the founders on this issue. They, several of them who spoke out after the Constitution was passed. They said this isn't going to work. The
Mhm.
document isn't a solution. It's going to be the moral situation of the people,
Right.
and that is what has to happen. So although we get involved in politics, what I like to think about is trying to take those moral principles and apply them to the law. That's why one of my favorite writers is the favorite book is The Law, Bastiat. He
Mhm.
said that if you and I can't kill, steal, and rob people, why in the world do we let the government do it to us?
Exactly.
It's no more complicated than that. And they'll say, Yeah, but we're used to it and we're dependent on it. You
Mhm.
just can't get rid of these things. No, you can't. And that's why I'm not thinking that, in 2 or 3 years, we're going to have enough people to change it. We're not going to change this government, but the government is going to change because I think that it'll come to the point where the monetary system won't work. So I think our goal is to work to spread the information. That's why I'm a strong believer in the principle of a remnant, both spiritually and economically speaking. People will cling to the truth of things, and I think that is our job. Not to thinking that I'm going to Washington, I'm a revolutionary, and I'm going to have all these laws passed. But hopefully, there were some seeds planted that this will continue to grow because we know the remnant doesn't have to be real big, and
That's
we
right.
never know where the remnant is. Travis, you don't know how many people you've influenced. And then if you've influenced 1,000 or 10,000 or 30,000, you don't know who they influence.
That's
So
right.
that's why it's a lot of room to be optimistic. But the big thing is believe in something and be convinced and keep studying to know how to express it and making sure you're on the right track. And because none of us will have perfect knowledge, but we can have a desire which is always striving for the truth, which is pretty much absent right now.
Right. There is, and that's the I think I worry about a lot of people because when there's an absence of leadership, a vacuum of truth, then it opens the doors for, people like Hitler and Stalin and others of a past to step in, and that's why, like you said, and, like we're doing here locally is to focus on
Right.
getting your families, your communities. We promote bartering and trading amongst our people as much as possible. Here in Missouri, we're trying to get past a gold and silver bill. I don't know how familiar you are with that, but trying to make gold and silver a legal tender. Once again, here in Missouri, and it's looking like that will probably pass. It's already passed one house, and
No, no,
on.
I think that activity is very good because it's really taps into the Constitution. It gives you absolute right to do it
Yes.
because the states were instructed you can't use anything other than silver and gold as legal tender. So there's been several states, and I've been very fascinated with what's happening.
Yes, and, we do other things like, promoting homeschooling or, family activities, and I really think that the people out there that they're getting really worried about where the country's going, and it isn't going in a good direction, that we need to, like you said, look at the bright side, and that it is also, bringing together that remnant and making us appreciate what we have, and very hopefully, raise up a new generation of patriots and spiritual warriors, because that's what this country needs, I believe.
Uh, I want to ask a question about your group.
Yes, sir.
Is Are the age groups spread out, or is there an attraction to somebody in their 20s and 30s,
The
or are they people that just remember when it was better off? What? How would that break down in your
it's a
group?
it's really a very wide spectrum on age. We have a lot of young children, a lot of families. We have actually several, young people in their 20s to say, early 30s, and then of course we have seniors, young married couples with no children. It's been pretty amazing to see that there's actually a pretty wide spectrum of ages there, and backgrounds, demographics. People that are, come from, maybe attorneys and doctors and engineers to mechanics and carpenters, and it's pretty a wide spectrum of people, and I think that is very representative of what we're seeing in America, of people that from all over. I mean, covering various demographics, are seeing that this nation isn't going in a good direction, and we need to get
Right.
ready.
Right. No doubt.
Well, one last question I have for you, and this may be a fun one, but I was reading this morning that there are more Americans now that are considering themselves independents than ever before. Would you ever consider running again for president?
Yeah, I think about it and I dismiss it. No, that's not in the cards because When I first ran, I was very annoyed by what I was seeing coming after they rejected the whole notion that the dollar had a definition. That was
Mhm.
August 15th, 1971. Bretton Woods broke down and we were in a default. We would not pass out our gold for the paper.
Mhm.
So I said, this will lead to trouble. And guess what? I think it led to trouble. And
Yeah.
it's an activity which is immoral and based on people stealing and robbing and wanting to get control of the government. So I think that made a big difference in my life because I ran, shortly thereafter, I ran for Congress. And my wife said, why are you doing that? And I said, well, I just want to get some stuff off my chest because I'm really annoyed. And I said, I can't just yell at you about it. so she says, yeah, I understand, but that is it's dangerous. I said, what do you mean it's dangerous? Back then, she wasn't into any conspiracies or anything like that.
Mhm.
She says it's dangerous because you're probably going to get elected. And I said, no way. It's impossible because I'm not offering giveaways. And she says, no, but they're going to believe you're telling the truth.
Yeah.
And I just, I disagreed with her because I really didn't think I was going anywhere. I was practicing medicine. And so I ran, and just the events came together that I ended up getting in there and trying to leave. I left and I was gone for 12 years, and something was dragging me back to speak out again. And so it was not a plan that I had, but things worked out in that way. And of course, I feel blessed because I was able to practice a lot of medicine. I have a wonderful family, and I had an experience in Washington. And my whole goal in Washington, the way I handled it, I couldn't look at each one and look at the evil they were doing. I always had to look at an individual, and I always found something where they voted correctly and complimented on it. And that was very mediocre, but sometimes it worked and always made me feel good. Sometimes there was one congressman that was gun ho over the Middle Eastern wars. And finally, he found out that some of our briefings they were just lying to him. And so he came to me and he says, tell me about this non-interventionist foreign policy. Things like that made me feel good because I was taught by Leonard Reed that you can't badger your way into it. You got to just be prepared, and eventually people will come, and that's why they probably come to your organization, because they know that something you're doing there is you're leveling with them, and you're not a politician saying anything you want. Oh yeah, I can get you better. I can get you a special deal. That sort of thing. That's what all Washington's all about.
That's right. There's definitely a vacuum of truth nowadays, even more so than ever before in Washington. I know that we only had a few minutes today,
Right.
but Dr. Paul, it has been a pleasure and an honor to have you on here for this time. I want to remind everyone that you have your own YouTube channel where you are posting. You're doing work almost every day. That's the Ron Paul Liberty Report. So folks can see you on a regular basis over there, giving your commentary. Is there anything else that you would like to promote before we sign off today?
No, because I think a program like what you have is very, very important. I don't know the numbers, and it doesn't bother me too much because any number is beneficial. Because I remember when I first got involved in politics, I was looking for an opportunity to talk about what I thought was important. And
Mhm.
I'd go to a college campus, and sometimes I could get 15 people to come out. But now it got different because I never had a plan that I would have a national campaign and we would get more than 15 people coming
Mhm.
out. So I think that I've been lucky and fortunate to have the opportunity. Besides, I enjoy it because I feel like hopefully I'm on the right track, and the endorsement we get from people is very heartening. But I
Well,
want to thank you, Travis, for having me
thank
on your
you.
program today.
Well, you are certainly a treasure to this country, and please keep doing what you're doing as long as you can, because your voice is needed probably more now than it's ever been in your entire career. That's just my personal opinion. Well, Dr. Paul, thank you for coming on today, and we wish you the best of times and in your future endeavors on your channel and work. Folks, right now is the time to get your houses in order. It's time to get yourselves prepared mentally, physically, and spiritually, because as we've said today, there is a lot of things changing in this country, and folks, you need to be getting ready for it. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.